oversees all the used functions, appraisals, inventory management, wholesale, etc. And Ben and his wife reside near New Hampton, Iowa, with your 3 kids. Matt Stratke, used equipment manager at Acres, grew up in the Sandhills of Nebraska on a family ranch before joining the U.S. Navy. Upon returning from the Navy, Matt attended the University of Nebraska at Lincoln and spent over 21 years involved in all aspects of equipment sales, parts, and service. So now I know why you were telling us a SEAL story right before the panel kicked off there. Lots of years in the Navy as well. Thank you for your service. Currently used equipment manager at Acres Equipment, a 27-store dealership located in Nebraska and Kansas. Been with Acres Equipment for 13 years and manages the team for appraisals, wholesale, remarketing, and internet sales teams. He's helped Acres Equipment develop and implement their centralized business practices and is driven to utilize data and analytics to improve efficiency and performance. Matt and his wife Amber currently reside outside Lincoln, Nebraska with their 5 daughters. And then we have Andy Campbell, industry analyst for TractorZoom. Been an industry analyst at TractorZoom, working over a dozen organizations so far, with experience ranging from engineering to operations to setting up CRM systems, and that has helped Andy refine his skill of turning data into profitable decisions to help business scale. Andy continues to help run his family farm in northern Iowa where he grew up, and he combines his farming understanding with industry experiences to help mold data into actionable insights for TractorZoom's clients. A graduate of chemical engineering, then later an MBA from the University of Iowa, Andy and his wife Tracy live outside of Pella with their 3 kids. So we're going to start this off with, what are challenges that we're facing? So what has been the biggest challenge each of you have faced in the past year regarding the used equipment industry? Matt, would you like to go first?
Sure. Well, I think like probably most of us have experienced, the biggest challenge probably was the whole supply chain issue that we unfortunately all became part of. And the supply chain was one thing, but really that trickle-down effect of everything that came after that really kind of put us out into some uncharted waters. Trying to work through having these machines with the late delivery, so now guys weren't using these machines that were ordered for them, putting more hours onto their trades, trying to navigate who owes what, are we collecting for that, is it our fault, is it their fault, it was so many one-off situations that we were trying to deal with going through all of that, and then in the end we ended up with a bunch of brand new machines that were now technically used, and so that's a pretty interesting situation to be in, trying to figure out how to market those new machines that are now considered used to that next buyer, and so that that in itself probably consumed the majority of my time of trying to sort through that, of how to keep up with how to evaluate and how to make this make sense for the next buyer. Really was quite a struggle in that.
At scale as well, not just one deal or a couple of deals. You had hundreds of them to keep track of. Ben?
I would say pretty much the same thing, trying to keep in touch your inventory when it's coming in, when it's gonna, who's paying the difference, and all that kind of rolled into too. I think we ended up with a lot of inventory that maybe wasn't the condition we originally thought. But we had never really chartered these waters and never had the tough conversations with the customer that say, hey, you are going to put another 100 hours on that. That comes with wear and tear, and that's probably coming in at a different price. So we had to kind of learn a new way to drive, so to speak, the sales process. And then also just, I think, finding equipment. I mean, in my prior role, that's pretty much all I did was go out and try to find equipment. And I mean, we were buying stuff all over the country just to find stuff for our guys to sell and bring stuff in-house, even to the tune of rebuilding our own tractors. So, I mean, we were doing a little bit of everything, but, now it's changed so fast, and I think it caught up to us so fast. Now we're kind of wondering what the next step is. You're looking down into a crystal ball that was 12, 14 months in advance, and nobody knows, and what's going to happen next year as well. So.
Thank you. And Andy?
Yeah, so from an equipment category and even a make model standpoint that I'm tracking, obviously the Class 8s were something that I've been tracking that's been a big challenge for people. And then more recently, you've got the the larger row crop tractors that we saw spike, and then we're working through that a little bit. In some areas, haven't really even hit the full brunt of that. One thing that probably doesn't get a lot of stage time here from a category standpoint are the compact tractors, but a lot of the smaller dealers that we work with that specialize in that aren't carrying your large row crops, your combines, they're struggling through a lot of volume if that's what they specialize in, and those kind of proliferated during the pandemic. And so just from a category standpoint, those are the pieces of equipment that I see that are challenging out there. But from a mentality standpoint, it's kind of returning to a new normal and just this mind shift. Even for me, trying to work through the data and doing year-over-year trends, it's just to realize that those last 2 years that we were working with might not have been the normal, even as much as we'd have liked it to be. We're back to a new stage.
I agree with that a lot. That ties in with a lot of the questions that we've been getting as well. Is used to be what you gave for the next one was what you gave for the last one, and you just can't do that anymore. So the insights that we're trying to pull from here is some of this normal? Can we use some of this information to determine what to do next, or is it an anomaly that we need to work through? So one half of the challenge is identifying the root cause. Is it how do your dealerships visualize the information? How do you use the information that you have to really figure out the root cause of some of these conditions you've had? Ben, you want to go first this time?
We look at aging. We look at overall numbers of inventory. Is it growing? Is it staying flat? Is it going down? Kind of through our CRM tool, how many quotes do we have? That kind of stuff. Trying to get a roadmap of maybe what's coming down the pipeline, both for trades, but also what's there for sales opportunities. Are we perfect at it? Absolutely not. We're still trying to kind of steer through that mess, especially as, the buying cycle really seemed to change fast. And I think a lot of you guys were selling maybe in the last downturn, 12, 13, 14. I think this even is probably changing faster than that. And I remember back then how shocked I was at how quick it went from foot on the gas to stamping in the brakes and probably going into reverse. So we're using our CRMs, we're trying to watch market data, our own sales data, our margins, our turns, trying to keep up on everything and trying to make a good plan going forward as best we can.
Thank you. Matt, do you want to give input?
Yeah, so, when you ask about the root cause of it, in my opinion, the root cause of it really wasn't on the dealer's fault, but nonetheless, we all got stuck trying to figure out how to sort through it. But, to Ben's comment, we really ramped up our reporting end of things. There's a lot of data out there that we had that we just never really captured. And so we really kind of ramped up our reporting side of it to work on our pending, try to do a lot more of the forecasting end of it to try to stay in front of it because of, just the backlog. And we knew how many we were going to need, how many do we got coming, trying to sort through it that way. So the reporting end of it really became the huge thing for us, trying to get more real-time data out of it so that we were making educated decisions now, not, this was all data that we had from months ago, because by then, to your point, it was changing so fast, you could get behind in a hurry. So through our CRM, through Salesforce, that end of it, some of our own internal reports, we use some other programs like Power BI, that's able to help serve up some of that information for us. We really put a lot of focus in on that to try to do that as well. And then we also, got full data analysts really on staff now that's able to help us out trying to generate that information for us.
Yeah, thank you. Andy, is there anything that TractorZoom is doing in this area as well?
Yeah, I'd say from this standpoint and building off what you guys said, it's really having that real-time data and being able to make quick decisions. And so I know Anvil and TractorZoom both take a lot of pride in trying to have that quality data. So if you do have the quality data, then you can make the real-time decisions. Then you have that essential speed of trust to move through those decisions. And so that's something that benefited us a little bit in trying to get to those root cause analysis. Then it comes down to, okay, you've got this data. What do you do with it to help people find the root cause or whatever the issue is? And I will say, we work with a lot of different partners to develop a lot of different solutions. And we don't necessarily know what it should look like, the perfect solution the first time out. And usually it's not perfect the first time out. And that's why we have these guys here to tell us, no, you're way off. But then it eventually can get to that. But getting to the root of the issue is that clean, quality data at the onset. then you're able to do things, make those real-time decisions, and that's about, right now, that's what you can do.
Yeah, I really like that aspect of taking the customer feedback and doing it. One of the things that we saw was that this information wasn't just valuable to the evaluation folks. We saw so much more education and transparency having to go in to the evaluation process, and even the selling process has been talked about, kind of changing the conversation with the customers. So in our feedback, one of the things we did last year, we showed you the trade evaluation process integrated with, at that time, IronComms, now Tractor Zoom Pro. And what our customers told us was, yes, but the sales team needs to see that at the time they're trying to sell that piece of equipment, not only when you're trying to evaluate it. So we took that same information, that same data contained some visualizations appropriate to the salesperson as they're trying to sell it. What are the 10 comps? What's the values today? What's it on the market today as you're trying to sell it? So that same partnership applying both to the evaluation side, but also now being also used in sell and share that information and transparency across there. So next we're going to move into a part about current practices. And recently, Tractor Zoom did a survey they sent out to several of you and many others talking about carrying costs. Interests have been up. I don't know if you've heard that or not, but carrying costs are starting to become much more of an issue. Those of you dealing with pool funds and such, it's taking a lot more of that. So that was really one of the top KPIs that they found, with almost 2/3 of the dealers highlighting that as one of their key or top APIs. So what we're going to talk about here is how we track those costs, how we're currently tracking them, how we're using them, how it's changing some of what we're doing, and what are the challenges we're facing with that. So to keep up, we're going to switch back to Matt going first.
So yeah, carrying costs obviously is becoming more and more of an issue as we go forward. Having $500,000, $600,000 pieces of used iron now, it's pretty amazing thinking of my evolution of my career through here. Thinking back when combines, you could buy a brand new combine for under $200,000, and now this is where we're at. So, on our end for the carrying costs, really we're looking at it, or I should say I look at it more as a holistic, kind of a comprehensive style approach, not so much as individual pieces itself, because I think at the scale that we're at, I'm chasing more of the trend side of things, being able to watch that, because I think as you watch the trends of what your carrying costs are, how those go, will actually help you understand too of how your inventory is aging, what's on your books, and going back to my previous comment with the pending inventory and that, of being able to have that data, so I set up some reporting on that as well to be able to watch our carrying costs and then look at our pending units to know what's going to be coming onto that book to help try to forecast what our carrying cost is going to be, to try to give us a more, comprehensive look, I guess, of what our entire inventory is doing. Because it's becoming a bigger and bigger deal all the time, interest rates being what they are. And you just can't afford to sit on this, very long anymore, before it really starts to go the other direction. Margins are tightening as we go, especially, the combine side of it. Everybody was at the trough going right at it when things were good, and now, they're stacking up, and we all know what it's like now, trying to work through those. So again, the reporting, trying to do a little bit of predictive forecasting on it for us has become a big indicator. But I look at the carrying cost really as just another cog in the sprocket, basically, of what my inventory is actually doing as a holistic approach.
Similar to what Matt said. I mean, we try to watch our inventory, watch the overall picture. Like you said, it's try to, on the scales we're dealing with anymore, it's really hard to nitpick on one or two pieces and get concerned with it. It's more of a big picture item. We do meet on a monthly basis as part of our entire management team, both new and used, as well as our parts and service department, and kind of track how we're doing as a whole, and kind of really lay out those numbers. The other thing is, I guess in the past, maybe one of the first sins of being in used equipment is getting too hung up on book value or what you got into something. And I kind of say if you lost money on a piece, you probably already lost it a long time ago. It's just you haven't recognized it yet. So really try not to get hung up on I got XYZ in that machine and I'm not going to let it go until I get that. Turn that dollar back into a dollar and put it to work for you. And I mean, we're in the business of trading equipment and moving iron and trying to make some margins along the way. You're going to lose some here. You're going to hopefully make up for it some other way. So we we really try to, if something is aged or distressed, you know, we deal a lot in the fertilizer equipment. That stuff loves to sit outside and get rained on. That rust is a great thing for tailgaters. So if it's, you know, if it's a troubled machine, don't look at it too long. We try to get it out and be real with ourselves that, hey, inventory's got to turn, and sometimes a zero is a win. So
I'd add to that as well. You know, we look at all of our deals as everything's a standalone deal. It's not so much, you know, as what your hard money might be later on in the deal. Like Ben said, if you're wrong, you're wrong. You know, we look at a lot of pieces of equipment every week, every month. We miss some of them. Some of them, you know, the salesmen are pretty good about being a little bit sneaky about how some of that might come past, and looks a lot better in the photos than it did in real life. But yeah, I think now you can't afford to hope that you're going to sell your way out of it. You just will take your lump and move on and try to make some money on the next deal.
Andy, do you have anything to share?
Just quickly, and I thought it was interesting because we built a little carrying cost calculator within TractorZoom Pro and trying to take the emotion out of it. But that's something that we learned from Ben's team of, hey, you've got to remove yourself from it even though you've got so much money into it, which is pretty much one of the lessons that that Sean told us here in the SEAL presentation. So, you know, before I learned it from the SEAL, I learned it from you guys.
he got it from me earlier. We talked out back.
That's where I thought he got it from.
Yeah, I appreciate how you even called it moving iron. You know, that might be what we're here to do. But just that opportunity cost, that was very intriguing as that came into there. Because the thing to keep in mind with data, it's just a number. If it doesn't help you answer a question, influence a process, bring something into play there within the dealership, it's just a number. So yeah, it's bigger than what it was before. What's the impact of that? How does the sales team approach things differently? How does it affect your evaluation process or your review process there as well? So it is really integrated into all of those business decisions today, data is. So we're gathering more and more of it every day, different areas, integrations, building the tools to harness it. So I'd like to ask you to talk about how you currently use this information that's being presented up to make some efficient decisions and areas that it's really made a difference or had a big impact for you in the dealerships. Ben, do we want to start with you this time?
Yeah, I mean, I guess one big tool we've really put focus on here lately is we've really taken a second look at our CRM and see what we can do with that as from a sales force. And, you know, I always, sure as many of you guys in used equipment, we're always wrong. If you ask the salesman, we're always too cheap. So we really use the CRM tool to make, you know, put some of the heat back on them. I always say, you know, I used to be in the sales, I know how it works, but I'm no longer front facing to the customer. So really all I can do is read all the data and give you an opinion on what it's worth, but up at the end of the day, it's up to them to go sell it. And so a lot of times, you know, if we go out there and they're looking at a late model combine or, you know, planters are another one that I just kind of cringe to look at planters because, you know, what works on my farm and the guy right across the fence will tell you that thing won't even plant corn. So I really put it back on the salesman that you want more money for that or you think you can get better for it, prove it. And we really kind of hold their feet to the fire and have them put their opportunities in there. And we use the real sales data and they say, you're $100,000 off on that machine. We just sold 3 of them and no, I'm right and you're wrong. And it's not to point fingers or you know, say we're the smartest person in the room, going back to what Sean said, but it's just using the data to kind of back up so that we don't get backed into a bad spot again or in a corner with making the same mistake over and over again. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest things we really put a focus on here lately.
Thank you, Ben. Matt, do you want to add?
Real similar to that, you know, we've put a big focus on the data and analytics side of things. Our leadership's been really good about giving us the tools to make those decisions. They've figured out that those people can earn their paycheck because it doesn't take very long for you to screw up on too many deals and you know, a couple of bad combine deals, you can probably pay somebody's wages. And some of these deals, some of these might be just one auction combine and you've got somebody's salary in check there. But so we've invested pretty heavily into that. So we've got the full-time data analytics people because there is all of this data that's floating out there. Everybody's got it. You just don't know how to get it a lot of times or how to make it work. And you know, to have a usable format of that, I think these analytics folks that you come in that they just love living in the charts and the spreadsheets and everything else of this really can be a huge asset to you, and they're well worth the money to be able to do that just on the scale that most of the dealers are operating at now. Our focus has really been on that data so that we can make the right decision now instead of playing defense and trying to catch up after you're already way out of the mix instead of fixing the problem when you should have. That's really kind of driven us to lean on that more and more. And like I said, we're super fortunate on that side that our leadership has said, yep, they understand that. They grasp what those folks can bring to the table for us. And so that's really been a big deal on our end.
So Andy, as a data geek, industry analyst, are there anything you'd like to add to that conversation?
Yeah, on the data geek side, I'll point at these two guys because we actually, on the prep call for this, we actually started talking about Microsoft BI, Power BI, and how cool it was. But one of the reasons why that is a neat tool is just because it pulls the data that you need, and it pulls it in one particular place, and then it's easy to use. But it's that integration and then easy to use. So if you just think about the technicians in your shop, sales guys in the field, it's giving them the tools that they need to succeed wherever they're at. If you can give them that recipe of things, then you've got a pretty high likelihood of success. And really working with the data is not a lot different. You've got smart people that are out there. It's just giving them the information that they need that's at their fingertips, easy to use, and then allow them to do their work. That's one reason why the integration with Anvil works so well. But also we've noticed it even within TractorZoom users that the more data that we're pulling in certainly helps, but the more different types of data that we're pulling in together, whether it's auction data, dealer data, sold data, dealerships owned data, that all of a sudden now all that information's in one place, and if you can make that easy to use, usability goes up, decisions go faster, and then you're able to just plow through that work. We even talked about in building the appraisal app that if you can pull that data into the same place where you're making your decisions, then all of a sudden work can get done. It can be enjoyable. It's not a pain to go flip through screens and stuff, and it's just, it's part of that recipe just to allow people to get to their full potential.
I would add to that real quick too. We all know how hard it is to find qualified help. So like the appraisal app's a prime example. But to your point, bringing all that information to one spot, if you can get 1 or 2 more usable minutes out of each person you have over the time of years, it's amazing how much more you can get done. And we all want to get more and more sold and be more efficient. And that's really what it's allowed us to do more with less too. Is using the tools. We all have the data there. If we're at this point in our careers, we probably have the hunch that it's there. But if we can just lock it in faster and have it all in one spot, it's 2-3-fold on a personnel basis. So
It is nice. On a recent podcast, Casey and I talked through some ideas around predictive, and that's the holy grail, right? When you evaluate a piece of equipment, predict me 3 buyers for this piece of equipment. We're not there yet. This isn't a feature release, but it is saying it is one of the benefits of being a sponsor here that TractorZoom and I both enjoy our company sponsoring, is to hear these types of challenges you're facing, because I can tell you we're working on it. We're trying to figure that out, and it's only by combining CRM information with appraisal information with market information will we be able to deliver on those types of predictive things. And will it be 100% accurate? No, but it'll be a lot better than a spitball of what we're working on and going from there. So if you haven't listened to some of those podcasts there as well, just a plug for the podcast, but we'll move on. Let's see. Yeah. So now we're looking to the future forward. So really, what are we looking at? What do we need to be able to improve our turn? Those carrying costs going up, those KPIs, the values, the unknowns. So what are we doing to improve our inventory turn? And that's where we really feel like predictive analytics can help deliver some of those results. And what do you need to put in place today for some of that to work? So we're going to start with Ben here. Ben?
I think, a lot of it is going to be, knowing what you're costing it now, going forward, what you're going to have coming in. So kind of having an overall picture of what's going on. Unfortunately, a lot of what I think looking into the future at a dealership level, we maybe don't know all the answers. There's always one guy out there kind of playing the offset, and that's the OEM. And so we're trying to put, or at least on our side, we're trying to put numbers on stuff compared to what the market's doing. It's obviously a guess. So if we can kind of have a tighter data on that, but then at the end of the day, if the OEM throws a curveball, we're all kind of left hanging. So trying to read some of that. I think the other thing is in my experience, condition and timeliness to get something back to the market is key. And so anything we can do to kind of push that ahead, get better marketing, better pictures, better info out there, hit more people in a shorter amount of time, I think would really help with that. So,
Matt, you want to go?
So on the predictive analytics side of it, one of the things that we did when we partnered actually with Anvil and Tractor Zoom Pro, right? I got that right. You know, it was, so our group, you know, on an average month, you know, we'll probably look at somewhere between 600 to 800 pieces of equipment. We've got months that we look at well over 1,000 pieces of trade equipment. And so trying to figure out the ease of use and a little bit of the predictability out of it when we partnered, you know, again, going back to my comment of having all of this data that we've got out there, you know, I was thinking we've got to come up with some way to actually make this work a lot easier than what we're doing. Instead of having to go here to look for this and here to look for that and here to look for this, we actually were able to go in and take all of our sales data and then take the Tractor Zoom data that would pull in, you know, and this is on our appraisal side, being able to pull in all the auction basically with one click of a button, you know, and it was able to go out and find the comparables that we thought were comparable, and then we're able to tailor that. But having that be able to do all of that, you know, we looked at, you know, just on average, you know, about 3 to 5 minutes, you know, per piece that we looked at. Well, if you scale that out, you know, I mean, that was our efficiency went up tremendously with that, you know, probably saved me from having to hire another guy to be able to do that. So the predictive side of it, you know, that data was there, and then we can put our little bit of our own spin on it as well to help do all that. But, you know, really what it boiled down to was ease of use, I think, and that's probably what holds a lot of people up is that information, like I said, it's everywhere, but it's just kind of a mess for a lot of folks because it's coming from all these different spots. So when we partnered up, being able to make all that work really with a single click to pull that in, that was a big game changer for us.
Here and on the predictive side, I think our first voyage into predictive was with you guys and our data scientist that we brought on, Hank, super smart dude, helped us write a program that essentially would start to analyze everything that's out there and try to predict time on lot. And I think at first it was maybe roughly about 60 to 70% accurate, and then it went up to 80, 90. I think we might be even heard 95 here recently of is it going to get to 180 days? And what that's really helped us do, though, is build out other types of products, run it against carrying costs, then you've got the potential to start to project your carrying costs and not have it be a lagging indicator, but really start to look at it going forward. So that's some of the predictive stuff that we're starting to work on. But then it gets down to just being able to have some actionable material. And so out of that, I think the project that we're working with you guys on is, hey, identify the ones that didn't have pictures or had subpar pictures, and then so you can go through your work a little bit faster. And so, yeah, we wanted to be predictive, but, you know, if it still got you driving off a cliff, you want to learn which way to turn. So working on that as well.
You know, it was also really nice to see from a predictive standpoint, the first step is to stop treating each evaluation as kind of a standalone activity. So starting to consolidate it so that you knew how many a month you were doing. And he doesn't just know the total number, he knows how many combines, what was his average, what was the median, what was kind of reconditioning, what did it actually come in at. He knows a lot more information off of that, which has really improved the clarity and kind of the communication throughout the entire dealership. It used to be just turns and stuff where something you did at a leadership level of just seeing how you did at the end of the day, where now it's something that is totally frontline and discussed during the evaluation process and et cetera. And I believe data is the reason why, making it easy to use, as Matt talked about. So where do we see these markets, what improvements or enhancements do you really see on the horizon? Will your strategies change coming up? Matt, you want to go first?
I don't think that our strategy is going to change because, I mean, we're all in the business of buying and selling equipment. So, you know, I think your strategy is going to always be that. But what's probably going to be the change is that as AI comes into play, you know, again, I'm going to go back to that data thing, that, you know, there's all these other data sources that are out there as well, just besides our own information. You have all of the weather data, you know, the Weather Service is doing their forecasting events. You got the USDA throwing out their information. Take that for what it's worth. And so you have the commodities and you know, fuel, all of those things. I think as the future goes on, I think with the integration of the AI technology, that's only going to keep getting better and better, and those things are going to start to overlay with each other to help give us better predictability. Is it ever going to be perfect? No, it's not. But I think as time goes, the repeatability and the algorithms that it's going to figure out of trying to help you make those judgment calls, I think will be here before we know it. Because I mean, it's crazy what some of the stuff's doing already. So I think that's really going to probably be the future of what's going to happen. I think there's just going to be more layers that are going to get stacked onto what we already have internally to be able to pull that stuff in. But I think our overall strategy, I think that strategy is going to stay the same. I mean, we're all in the equipment business, and you know what the end game is. You got to make some money somewhere along the way. So I think these tools here are just going to be able to make your job a little bit easier, make more educated decisions, and be able to make them a little bit faster with more confidence, without giving any of that up. So.
Ben, where do you see your group going?
I agree 100% with Matt. I think as these tools develop and get more smart, so to speak, we'll have more confidence in the data and be able to make better decisions. Right now, that's still pretty fresh in our minds. Some of us probably just don't believe that it's true. But as we get more confident in that, it's going to be more kind of the push button, and so it's going to allow us to have better decisions quicker with, like you said, more efficiency and less people. From a strategy standpoint, I agree. I mean, our overall strategy is not going to change a ton. Try to stay fluid with what the current markets are. I do think electronic sales are going to be coming more and more. I think COVID coming on, the whole machinery thing is global now. We had our sale 3 weeks ago. We had combines going to Ukraine, China, wherever. So I think that part's going to come faster and probably need to be embraced even harder than what we are now as an industry. But lack of people wanting to have that face-to-face conversation anymore is shocking. But I think we've probably all sold a $500,000 tractor through a text message before. So I mean, I don't think our strategy is going to actually change. We're just going to tweak it to kind of follow the country road a little bit.
Same thing we do as well. Andy, what's in TractorZoom's pipeline?
A lot. So a couple things we mentioned. We've got the appraisal app they're working on, and then tied in with our inventory and the time on lot predictive piece of how long something might sit there. Tie that in with holding costs, like I mentioned, and then you've got a little bit of a projection of what those holding costs might be. We talked a lot about AI side, and we're actually using those models, those AI language models, and this is about as smart as I can possibly get without overstepping my bounds, but I know our data scientist is looking at building language models to read on to descriptions to be able to pull out what's actually going on in the descriptions, and then you've got visualization AI as well, which is then way beyond what I know. But so all that's happening faster, and to these guys' point, it allows you to even stick with your strategy, but just be able to respond probably faster, get through more work faster. But I think it's going to be necessary because I think we're going to see we are already seeing the whole global economy change a lot faster, and I think you're going to start to see, players we're already seeing Brazil and what they're putting out in terms of a crop, but then we're seeing a lot of question marks within China, our biggest customer, in terms of some commodities change. So I think the external market is going to change much faster too. So we are going to have to be more adaptable.
Cool. From the Anvil side, we're really just going to keep going down the path, which is digital transformation. And you might see us as a CRM, but I know that's a four-letter word if you don't use it for something. And digital transformation is what we've been talking about here. So we're going to be focused on taking our existing suite of applications, the appraisals, the inspections, the inventory management, the analytics piece, and continuing to build those out with more pieces, as well as then some additional analytics, as well as some more integrations. Working with several partners now to bring even more information to that CRM so that it is useful for even more of this type of thing around. Now the question, where are the markets headed in the next 6 months? Andy, I'm going to start with you this time.
Okay, so I don't know because I still have corn that I should have sold at $6 and now it's sitting there at less than $5. But I think the surge that we saw from combines, from those arriving late, talking about equipment now, is obviously something that we're all experiencing. We're seeing that with row crop tractors, especially larger row crop tractors, 8Rs, that are more in the high plains. And I think that'll start to shift. We tend to see large row crop tractors and combines. Whatever happens here in the Midwest, it does ripple a little bit to a muted extent to the east and to the south. Not necessarily though for sprayers. A lot of what I see with sprayers can kind of happen in the South and kind of happen in Texas, can happen in the Midwest. And so, you know, if I'm pulling out a crystal ball right now, I've seen a slight uptick in sprayers, even though we've seen decent demand this summer for what's been out there. That if I had to put my money on something that we're probably going to see an oversupply here in the near future, I would put my money on self-propelled sprayers.
Ben, you want to go next?
I think we'll have a pretty solid end of the year for the most part. I mean, we're in an area that's extremely dry, northeast, north central Iowa. It's not going to be a bin buster by any means, but I think there's enough carryover. I think there's enough buying interest. There's going to be some insurance money that's going to need to be spent. So I think we'll have a pretty good end of the year. I think combines obviously are going to continue to be a heartache for a lot of people. I think a lot of that is we kind of maybe need to redetermine who is a Class A buyer and who's a B buyer, and maybe the B buyer needs to be split up. You know, I think Class 9 combines, the guy that's buying that is generally a new buyer who's going to buy it used. So I think we need to figure that out. And I think that's going to trickle down all the way through a little bit. Tractors, I think they're going to kind of soften, especially your big dumb horse, I'll call it, because let's be real, it goes back and forth and it doesn't have to do a bunch of technology stuff. So if you got one good in the shed and the sheds are full, you're probably going to keep it. In our area, I think row crops will be kind of flat for the most part, maybe slightly down. But I agree with the sprayers. I think sprayers could become the next, maybe back up a little bit. But overall, I think till the end of the year, pretty strong. Next year, I don't know.
Definitely, one of the things I think you said there is really going to play into it is the insurance, being able to look at both yield and price insurance coming into play, and you know, profitability is the end game for that farmer, and I think there's going to be more impact to the insurance than what we thought coming into here as well. Do we want to do Q&A? We've got a few minutes left here. Do we have any questions from the audience that you'd like to stump the chump? I mean, ask our panel for their opinions and insights around. Does anybody? Yes, we have one up here. I'm going to walk out to you. Please let everybody know who you are and then ask your question of the group.
Yeah, hi, I'm Chris. And my question is, when you're establishing your trade value, and you talked about carrying costs quite a bit, are you factoring in carrying cost into that trade value? And if so, how much, you know, future carrying cost are you factoring in? 6 months, 90 days, or none?
So I'm going to say yes, but it's a very unofficial number. So we look at our current inventory, we look at the overall picture, we look at what's already coming in, maybe not on the books yet, and we make a determination from there. So we don't go and actually figure out that it's going to be $9,322 a month. It's more of a, we have X number of these, we're already kind of at our market saturation, and so we're going to discount a little bit just to kind of cover our tail. So it's yes, but not nuts and bolts, I guess.
Yeah, we're similar on that same end. You know, we're going to look at what our current inventory is. Again, what's our trending. I run off of an L12 report so I can see, you know, what we've sold, what we have in the pipeline, am I long, am I short on that, and then being able to look at what, you know, I can see what my carrying cost is for combines, let's say, you know, is it rising, you know, and if that's the case, and I know we're outrunning that, obviously we're backing our values down on that end of it. So it's not, again, it's not a unit by unit that I know, hey, if I carry this for 120 days or whatever it may be on that, that we're deducting that off. But again, it's more of with the reporting end of it, we can make those decisions that we need to back our combine values back X dollar amount, you know, because this is what we're historically, this is what our average days of carrying is, this is what it's costing us to be able to do that, and then make our trade appraisals from that.
I would say that was one of the questions we were asked when we put it together, was just how many of these things do I have already so that I can make that type of determination. And that's kind of a change, shifting from what's that machine worth to what's that machine worth for me in the audience of how much I already have.
Yeah, and I think, you know, another big part of that too, you know, that we've become more and more focused on is that on the forecasting end of it, knowing that, hey, we're going to need X amount of machines historically to fulfill this season of machines, and we've got this many coming in, that we're going to cut ties early rather than wait because historically that's what we always did. You know, you'd get to the end and you're like, oh, we've got 40 too many combines yet, so we need to figure out what are we going to do with these. Well, usually by the time you figure that out, it wasn't the most opportune time to do that. You're already starting to mess the market. So we've done a lot more of that end of it, of trying to be predictive. Hey, let's do these right away. We know we've got to get rid of X amount of machines to try to put us in a good spot right off the get-go.
Thank you. We've got a minute for one more question. Does anybody want to? Can you repeat that, sir? How do you come up with wholesale? The question was, how do you come up with wholesale value?
Well, wholesale value, I mean, to me, it's what the market's going to bear. It's not what I think the wholesale value is, it's what the market thinks the wholesale value is. Because we all know that what we want and what we will take, two different things, depending on that situation you're in. When we look at wholesale value, I mean, we have a dedicated wholesale manager that handles that for us. So he's on the phone constantly talking to all of the wholesale guys, and he's got a pretty good pulse of what's going on out there with everybody. We're also talking to other dealers every day, and we're asking them, you know, how are they doing in this particular product segment? You know, what are they seeing? And so we have that idea of where the wholesale market's playing at right now. And so I also take into account, going back as the more holistic approach of everything, how many do we have? That changes what my wholesale dollar is worth. You know, are we long, are we short? How excited am I to get rid of something? So our wholesale value is pretty fluid on our end.
100% agree, and that's what I did prior to being general manager was manage that. Like you said, network the heck out of everybody, you know, and call and talk to multiple dealers every day, multiple brokers, and you get an idea and a feeling of, you know, what things are worth. And at the end of the day, if you got one that you just really need to move, that's maybe a different price. And so the best buyer is probably the buyer you have at that point.
And say one factor into that as well is making sure that you've got plenty of wholesale buyers and knowing when to call and how to get it across there and who did you offer this one to and how do you keep track of that right on the evaluation as well. Thank you for your questions. We're going to let Andy give a couple comments here to wrap up, and then I'll give a couple as well.
So anyways, yeah, to echo that, just thanks everybody. And you know, if you haven't stopped by the Tractor Zoom booth yet, we'd love to be able to show you things that these guys have talked about, the inventory, the appraisal application, and all the other stuff that we're working on. And one other thing is, I know we've worked with multiple dealers out in here on certain projects that just are problems. Like somebody will call us up and say, hey, I've got all this data, I want to try to solve this issue, or I've got this issue because my data is not good, can you help me solve it? And from a lot of those conversations, the one that we were talking about earlier, that's where products come out of, or it's just where we develop a better relationship and have a better understanding. So it's those kind of just collaborative projects that we work on that usually spawn up, you know, great ideas and hopefully good solutions for you guys. So it just starts with conversation. Let us know if we can help, and we'd be happy to talk.
Great, thank you. From my standpoint, I just wanted to highlight to everyone, a lot of the questions we get is, where do I go next? What's my next steps here? And I think you heard today that data is everywhere. They're really gaining insights from that information is the next area for you to go into. How do you consolidate it? How do you integrate it? How do you get it into your workflow? And how do you release it from its cage, basically, and make it transparent and available to everyone? And then you figure out how to automate things. How can you use that information to tell you predictive buyers and predictive carrying costs, et cetera, so that you can get those insights from it. So what I ask you here is, you know, take this, what you've heard, back to your dealerships, focus on the answers you need, and then what are the questions that you need to ask to get those answers. That's what data can give you, but if you don't know the questions, you don't know what you're looking for there, that's where it really, where you have the biggest impact. So then we focus on how you can do it at scale. And that's where Tractor Zoom and Anvil AppWorks would be happy to help you. If you want to have a conversation, our booths are right outside the door. With that, I want to say thank you to our panelists. We really appreciate them taking their time. Ben will pretty much be taking over Casey's job, I've heard now, because he's been, but we appreciate everyone coming to our session there, and please give us feedback and on what you heard here, as well as the format, and if you'd like to have more of it. So thank you with that.